Life and Love with the World's Worst Dog. Marley and Me by John Grogan. The Perfect Dog. In the summer of 1967, when I was 10 years old, my father caved into my persistent pleas and took me to get my own dog. Together we drove in the family station wagon far into the Michigan countryside to a farm run by a rough-hewn woman and her ancient mother. The farm produced just one commodity: dogs. Dogs of every imaginable size and shape and age and temperament. They had only two things in common. Each was a mongrel of unknown and indistinct ancestry, and each was free to a good home. We were at a mutt ranch. "Now take your time, son," Dad said. "Your decision today is going to be with you for many years to come." I quickly decided the older dogs were somebody else's charity case. I immediately raced to the puppy cage. "You want to pick one that's not timid," my father coached. "Try rattling the cage and see which ones aren't afraid." I grabbed the chain link gate and yanked on it with a loud clang. The dozen or so puppies reeled backwards, collapsing on top of one another in a squiggling heap of fur. Just one remained. He was gold with a white blaze on his chest, and he charged the gate, yapping fearlessly. He jumped up and excitedly licked my fingers through the fencing. It was love at first sight. I brought him home in a cardboard box and named him Sean. He was one of those dogs that give dogs a good name. He effortlessly mastered every command I taught him, and was naturally well behaved. I could drop a crust on the floor, and he wouldn't touch it until I gave him the okay. He came when I called him, and stayed when I told him to. We could let him out alone at night, knowing he'd be back after making his rounds. Not that we often did, but we could leave him alone in the house for hours, confident he wouldn't have an accident or disturb a thing. He raced cars without chasing them, and walked beside me without a leash. He could drive to the bottom of our lake and emerge with rocks so big they sometimes got stuck in his jaws. He loved nothing more than riding in the car and would sit quietly in the back seat beside me on family road trips, content to spend hours gazing out of the window at the passing world. Perhaps best of all, I trained him to pull me through the neighbourhood, dog sled style, as I sat on my bicycle, making me the hands-down envy of my friends. Never once did he lead me into a hazard. He was with me when I smoked my first cigarette, and my last, and when I kissed my first girl. He was right there beside me in the front seat when I stuck out my older brother's Corvair for my first joyride. Sean was spirited but controlled, affectionate but calm. He even had the dignified good manners to back himself modestly into the bushes before squatting to do his duty, only his head peering out. Thanks to this tidy habit, our lawn was safe for bare feet. Relatives would visit for the weekend and return home determined to buy a dog of their own, so impressed were they with Sean, or Saint Sean as I came to call him. It was a family joke, the same business, but one we could almost believe. Born with the curse of uncertain lineage, he was one of the tens of thousands of unwanted dogs in America. Yet, by some stroke of almost provincial good fortune, he became wanted. He came into my life, and I into his. And, in the process, he gave me the childhood every kid deserves. The love affair lasted 14 years, and by the time he died, I was no longer the little boy who'd brought him home on that summer day. I was a man, out of college, and working across the state in my first real job. St. Sean had stayed behind when I moved on. He was where he belonged. My parents, by then retired, called to break the news to me. My mother would later tell me, "In 50 years of marriage, I've only seen your father cry twice. The first time was when we lost Mary Ann, my sister who was stillborn. The second time was the day Sean died." St. Sean of my childhood, he was a perfect dog. At least, that's how I will always remember him. It was Sean who set the standard by which I would judge all other dogs to come.